Wow. Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. B presents Light Skin versus Dark Skin, Impact on Kids, Possible Generational Curses. I have a group of phenomenal women here tonight that are going to share some experiences. We have family members, we have sister friends, we have close friends. We're going to talk about this issue. This is actually the third episode of a series. Our first series was light skin versus dark skin, breaking down barriers. Our second series was light skin versus dark skin, home issues. We've had some great discussions. We've had some great discussions. We've talked about some of the issues that have impacted us, some of the issues that have made us into the people we are today, and definitely some issues that we need to address to prevent this from happening to another generation. So I really wanted to go through with introductions. I feel like I did lose someone. Go through introductions. We have Ashara Naya. She is on tonight. She will be off camera, but she has provided us with a beautiful picture. Then we have Ms. Leah Mills, the mental reconstructionist. She's going to help us get deep inside of our heads. Then we have Yolanda, the RN over here. She's going to talk about some stuff. Then we have Miss Lauren Mills. Lauren is actually the daughter of Leah, so I'm honored to have Lauren here tonight because we've heard Leah talk for the past couple of weeks. Now we have the inside scoop on what's happening in Leah's house. Then we have Miss Asandi Connor here, the voice bearer. I call her Miss Voice of Reasoning. I love the way Asandi just sums up things for us. And joining us, we have Nicole Novak. I always want to throw that that I, but it's Nicole Novak. Hey, Nicole. Nicole is a registered nurse also, and she will provide some insight. I think I lost my sister. Here she is. Hi, sis. And this is my sister, Lakeisha Evans. So, hi, Lauren.
Hi.
No pressure at all. This is just a conversation. But the topic again tonight is light skin versus dark skin, impact on kids. I know that your mom, the past two episodes were kind of telling us because your mom is very bright complexion. I noticed your dad is a dark complexion. How did that play out for you growing up? Did it have any impact on you, especially with you being the complexion you are? Did you encounter any issues growing up?
Yes. I kind of had an issue personally with identifying myself as Black because the kids at my school, I was white or albino or whatever. Now, I'm not quite sure on the albino part, but all I know is not white. I remember I used to watch a show called The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, and they were like me, and I asked my sister whether or not Zach and Cody were Black, and she said, "You never seen white people before." Maybe, but you said I was Black, so they could also be Black. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Can't hear you.
Did you hear anything that I said? I was hearing some really loud noises.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. I was confused on clearly what Black people looked like when I was a kid because I thought these white actors could also be Black if I was told that I was Black. And I looked similar to them in terms of skin color. I'm sorry. I keep hearing these loud noises like something is wrong with someone.
Are you near your phone? Is your phone near you? Is your phone on near you? That may be picking up reception.
Okay, I could throw them somewhere else. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so at school I got picked on for being light. I got called a white girl, whatever. And then it spilled into me sort of having an identity crisis, I guess you would call it. almost like a regret. Um, to where I was confused myself on not confused, not apathy, but not being able to be prideful in my identity because I see little people that look similar to me or like me. And so me being an artist, um, I make a lot of things that uh, include black women, and none of the black women that I used to paint look anything like me. And if I noticed that when I did paint myself, it was kind of in a more grotesque uh, manner, I suppose, because I didn't really value my image as a black woman. I've only gotten to the place recently where I'm able to portray myself in a better light, in a more, I guess, in a prettier light, because I guess, more okay with myself. I'm sorry, I'm stammering a little bit because whatever nose I'm wearing are still sticking. But for the moment, yeah, that's been my experience.
Wow. That's interesting that you said that you would paint yourself in different ways because you really didn't understand who you were. Leah, how when she was going through that, how did you help her through that?
It was somewhat difficult. I remember at age 2, again, she would often, point at the television because she was seeing, right, the resemblance. Again, she had blonde hair, and before she decided to cut it off, as you all can see, she's growing dreads. So again, trying to, right, identify with, right, the Black culture more so, where her hair was long and straight and blonde. And so it was kind of difficult for her. And so I would use a lot of educational tools to try to inform her on the Black community, on our race and our ethnicity. And so whenever she would, like she mentioned, being an artist and portraying herself in more grotesque type manner, sometimes she would get really angry, painting, right, or sculpting. And so I would have to kind of have a conversation with her to allow her to kind of release and to bring down what she's feeling inside. So yeah, it was a lot of hand holding and walking side by side, and definitely letting her know. So there's a lot of diversity within the African American culture or the Black culture, and that she's proud of who she is. She's 20 now, and it's taken quite a bit of time for her to get to a place where she can at least just see the beauty in who she is.
Wow. Interesting. Any comments from anyone else? Nicole, are you with us? You settled? Wait a minute. You're on mute. There you
It's better now. So I missed part of the conversation, but I did hear when Lauren was speaking as a child. So if you can just rephrase the question for me, and I'll go from there.
No, just asking people, just asking the panel to just describe some of the experiences they had as a child or experiences that they are encountering and raising their own children, especially children that are having issues identifying with who they are.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I had a hard time growing up as a child because I was like the lightest one in my family for the most part, except for like my aunts and uncles. And I grew up in a Black activist family. And so my uncle, same melanin complexion as Yolanda, And he taught me when I was 3 years old. He said, you know, even though you're light skinned, you're still just black as everybody else. And don't you ever forget it. So I always went through life feeling like, you know, I'm just as black as everybody else, but no one looked at me and pictured me in that way. And so, you know, I would get teased and called, you know, the H word. We say the N word, but for white people, it's the N word, you know, I mean, the H word. So, you know, and that didn't feel good, whether it was my siblings calling me that or people at school. So I had a really hard time dealing with my complexion. And actually, it wasn't until I was an adult, probably in my mid to late 20s, where I started to, you know, just say I'm going to appreciate myself for who I am and how I was born, because I had no control over it. But I felt like some type of shame, you know, being so light skinned, especially coming up in a black activist family that was fighting for civil rights and reparations. And those are the things that I was being taught. So even though I wasn't actively it was still taught to me at a very early age that this is who you are and this is who we are. Don't you ever think differently. So I know Bridget always says, stop being so militant. I was like, well, I can't help it, you know, I'm kind of raised that way. My kids did fine, you know, because they, you know, they're light, but they're not as light as me. And my son, he had a difficult time when he went off to college. He went to University of North Carolina. So he had a difficult time, not necessarily based on his race, but people didn't know what he was, you know, which race he belonged to. And so even when growing up, everybody wants to always classify me or him as something other than being black. And I was always actively told, I said, well, you know, where are you? I said, I'm just a light skinned black girl from the city, you know, from Detroit. No, you're not. You're Hispanic. No, you're not. You're Middle Eastern. No, you're not. So I always have people telling me what I was. I'm like, I'm telling you what I am, you know. So that's my story. Even now as an adult, you know, you still get some things where people, you know, they look at you and they judge you and they think that you think you're better than them because you're light and because you look a certain way. And I'm like, no, that's just how you feel. I mean, I have no no issues with any of that. So people just kind of stereotype you and fit you into this bucket, you know. But now that I'm older, I just kind of been letting it go. But it has been difficult over the years. It really has been.
Okay. How about, so when we talk about the impact on kids, are your grandkids dealing with any issues?
Nope, not at this time. I have 4 grandkids, and 2 of them are actually school age. They are 8 and 9 right now, so they're in the 3rd and 5th grade. And one, she, you know, she's not light like me. She's, you know, she's brown skinned, you know, just slides right in. And the other one, you know, he's light, but they're going to school out here in East Point where their mom lives, and it's a very mixed, diverse community. So they're not having any issues as far as being, you know, light complected. So they're kind of bypassing that. And then my kids, they were growing up, they really didn't get hit with it too hard. I mean, they went to Central High School. They did get into a lot of fights though. I had boys and my boys were always in some kind of fight. So it just kind of makes me think, were they always being picked on or jumped on because, you know, they were light skinned in a community where the majority of the people were not as light as we are.
Wow. All right. Hey, Yolanda.
Hello.
Tell us about what some of the things that happened to you when you were a child, or maybe some things that maybe have happened with, you know, your daughter Amina or your sons.
I think Amina did pretty good because she's not as dark as I am and she's not bright. She's medium caramel color skin. So I think in her growing up, I instilled into her all those things that I did not like within me. If somebody picked on me because of the color of my skin, I made it so that as she was growing up, that she was confident enough that she could stand her own ground. But as for me, I think back about a lot of the situations that I had um, growing up in terms of colors. I was, all the dark skin nicknames, all of the dark skin acronyms. I think about how that, like, as a kid, I have strong sisters, and a lot of times growing up, back in the 70s, it wasn't cool to have African descent. It wasn't cool to look like you came from Africa. So, you were always called the African girl, or look at that black African standing over there, or Look at, my hair fell out when I was in the sixth grade, and I've always had a fat face. So, oh, look at her. She was like Florida Evans. And like, even still to this day, if somebody says that, like my neighbor, I took my hair down so I can get it redone, and I washed it as wearing an afro. And my neighbor said, "You look just like Florida Evans." And before I realized, I said, "Don't ever say that. Do not ever say I look like that." Because it was a flashback from as childhood that it wasn't a nice thing to look like me. It wasn't cool to be dark like me. Nobody wanted the dark skin girl. Nobody wanted to hang out with the dark skin girl. And then to top it off, I was 5'6" in the fourth grade. So, you're already taller than everybody else. You're darker than everybody else. And the sad part was I was almost smarter than everybody else. So you just did not fit in. And so I really grew up feeling as though I was in an island by myself because, my siblings I don't have very many dark siblings. They're like different shades of melanin, but I'm one of the darkest. And so I couldn't identify. Nobody was talking to me and telling me, love the skin that you're in, love who you are. It's things that I had to learn to grow up to do because I just had to learn to come accept who I was. And yeah, there's still days that, sometimes we struggle with who we are. Because, even though we say, yes, I'm comfortable in my skin, but in our culture today and where we're living, it's just not, it's still not an acceptable thing to be dark. So it's just kind of, you still kind of play that gamut of, do I fit in socially? Do I fit in because of who I am? And learning to be who you are. And it's just like, okay, I'm learning, but I'm not all the way there.
Wow. Wow. All right, Lakeisha, let's jump over to you. What were some of the things that you went through, especially being the little sister of the dark-skinned girl?
Well, I guess the first show I already told you guys, like just growing up, I was just always fighting, always being chased home from school by a group of girls from another block that you think you're cute, so we want to beat you up. Like that was just normal for me. But I will say, and you can be able to tell me different. I don't know because I don't remember that much. But I never looked at color like in our family like that. Because literally, like growing up, I thought you were the most beautiful person like in the world. Like your skin is like butter. There's not a wrinkle, a line. There's like nothing. And I used to like. I would tell like my kids, I'm like, your aunt is just so beautiful. Like I wish I had her skin. Like I have lines. And I'm way younger than you. And I just looked at you like you were beautiful. Your hair was always a different color. You have beautiful, thick, gorgeous hair. So there was never like oh, you're ugly because you're dark skin, like you're different, I'm different. I don't know. I just never really saw it that way. And I don't think growing up, I thought I was like better than anybody else. I probably thought I was cute. I still think I'm cute. I am cute. But I don't know. I just in our family, I didn't really see that much of a difference because I just always thought you were the most beautiful person in the world. And I still think you are. Like you're gorgeous. So yeah.
Oh, I love having my sister on the panel. Cool. I paid her to say that now. But it's funny that you say that because you say that you didn't experience any issues. And the reason you didn't experience any issues is because you were the norm. You were what grandma looked like. You were, you and mom had the same color skin. I was, like I said, I was the darkest grandchild. So coming up, feeling slighted by grandma because, grandma's mom, was, blue eyes and blonde hair. And that was, they were living in Mississippi. So I felt like sometimes I felt like I was a stepchild. I felt, if it wasn't for me, looking like my dad's twin, I really would have felt like I was an adopted child because when we had family gatherings down south, I would just stand back and just look because it's like everybody looked alike, but yet I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I really didn't feel, accepted, and it didn't help that, mom and I had those issues where I really didn't feel loved at all times by her. And then to be down south with grandma, and grandma, having her biases and, being raised the way she was, I just always felt like I was on the outside. I always felt like I was ugly. I always felt like, would life be different for me if my skin was different? Even when I went through the issues of being molested, I always thought, if I was cuter, if my skin was lighter, would these people touch on me? If I, are you touching on me because no one's looking at me anyway? So I always went through those things. And that's why a lot of times I shied away. And for the longest, I didn't like the mirror. I didn't take pictures. Gerard gets on me now. Every time I turn around, you're taking a selfie. Well, I went almost 48 years of my life not taking pictures at all, because for the longest, I didn't think that I was worthy of a picture. So yeah, I'm making up for lost time. I'm going to take a selfie. I'm going to take a picture every chance that I can get. So we did grow up differently. And unfortunately, I think that it was different for you because, like I said, because you look like everybody else, whereas I didn't. Asandi, did you have any issues when you were coming up?
I did not, but I decided to call my daughter this afternoon and ask her, because her and I had not had this conversation. So I asked her, did she experience anything? And she paused and she said, well, no, mommy. Think about how I grew up and where I attended school. And she had the privilege of attending an African-centered school, so she was celebrating. So that was different for her. I don't feel like I experienced anything that was trauma, because most of my family is my color and darker. But as I was listening to the women speak before me, I thought about something that maybe in terms of an action item that we can do moving forward, I think is having these conversations with our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, et cetera, the young people in our life, about the reality of colorism. And I think there's an opportunity to educate them, like I believe Leah educated us a couple of weeks ago about that. Whether you are a brown or a dark skinned or a light skinned person, there are experiences that you have that the other may not be aware of and sensitive to. I think there's an opportunity for us just to begin to cultivate awareness in people younger than us that it exists, and hopefully that awareness will result in some sensitivity around it, because I think we're operating in silos and making assumptions about what other people are or are not experiencing. So I think there's just having some conversation that it is real and that we are having our own, we're navigating our own mess around it, kind of humanizes it, but it also, I think, can help the healing and connection between us. And this conversation series that we're having, I think, is also a part of that. I also, Dr. B, before we move forward, I want to just sign up, pause for a moment and acknowledge what I heard you say about the physical sexual abuse that you experienced, because I think it's important to not ignore that. You said that, and I want to just honor and acknowledge that and hold space for that. And I'm sorry that you had that experience.
Thank you, Asandi. And, just a reminder to all those that are watching, although the series is called Light Skin versus Dark Skin, it's truly like an oxymoron here, because we don't want it to be light skin versus dark skin. We want to celebrate all colors. We want to celebrate the fact that we are all Black women, all strong Black women. We may have had different experiences. We may have different amounts of melanin in our skin, but at the end of the day, we're all Black women, and we need to celebrate each other and uplift each other, and we shouldn't be tearing each other down just based on the color of our skin. I'm going to ask the mental reconstructionist to come in with some words.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was kind of some noise that I couldn't hear on my end. Can you repeat that? I
No,
apologize,
I
Dr.
was just
B.
letting them know that, although it's the series is called light skin versus dark skin, it's truly something that we don't want to celebrate. We don't want people to think that it's light skin versus dark skin. At this point, it's light skin and dark skin, different hues of melanin. At the end of the day, we're all Black women, all strong Black women, and we have things to contribute to each other. I just wanted to know, I asked that you say something from the angle of the mental reconstructionist, from the, social worker aspect. How do we begin to heal? Sandy made a great point about, starting conversations with our kids, and not only the kids that are in our households, the kids that are in other households as well. I think that's truly a great point, because like I said before, even in my household, with the people that I hear, I'm still being accused of being the darkest person in the house. And you hear the kids when they're talking to each other, well, you're darker than me. No, you're darker than me. And I'm like, does it matter? Does it truly matter?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times we are allowing for other individuals to put their pain onto us. When you're unaware of the shame, right, that others may feel based on what you look like to them, right? So, for instance, my daughter would often go over to her father's home. We were separated. I kind of told you all about the story in the hospital. It didn't get no better after that. But and when she would go over there, there would always like be this question, right, of her identity. And so when she had to come back, I had to talk to her even more, right? And reprogram her into being able to identify as how she needed to identify as a Black woman, a strong Black woman. The place that I'm going with this is this. Sometimes we wear somebody else's dirty shirt, right? Their issues that they've put on us, we're wearing this every single day, and it's crafting our negative belief of self. And we have to challenge it when it comes up. When those, what we call exiles from our past, when they show up in our present, we have to challenge it by looking at who we are. Look at the reality of our beauty. Look at the reality of our strength as Black women and challenge it and push back on it. That's the only way we will be able to come together as Black women and work together.
Yeah, that is amazing. I've been thinking about something since we had our first show, and the lighter complected girls talked about how they were, we were treated pretty badly growing up, because of, like you said, the people unpacking their baggage on you and from what they've been through. And that is a side of the coin that a lot of, I guess, lighter skinned girls have been through, but also on the perspective of where the darker complected girls think, oh, you think you're better than me. There are, and I don't think this pocket is really ever talked about. There are, and I've seen it, I've seen video chicks speak on shows and stuff, and I see it and I hear it. There are a pocket of lighter skinned women who literally think they are better than the dark skinned girls. So let's not ignore that. Right. They need to be spoken to. Not spoken to, but they need help, because they go around in life feeling very privileged. And yes, society has privileged them, but I can see where the darker complected girl, why they picked on the lighter skinned girls. Not just because, it's because they saw how they've been favored. So it's just so many complexities to this, but I just really did not want to overlook that, because there is a pocket that's it's not a nice pocket of girls.
Yeah. And I don't want to take over, but I want to piggyback off of that, because that's powerful. And when we're talking about the parental figures, if I don't feel good about me, I'm definitely going to pass that on to my children, right? And if skin color was the issue for me, then if my child comes out and looks like me, then it's going to be the issue for my child. But let's think about it. If it flips, right? Let's say that I'm a light-skinned woman. I don't like you know, what I look like. And so I'm begging for a darker complected child. When I get it, if I get it, think about the praise that that baby is going to get. Think about how they're just going to pour love on that child, and that child is going to think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. The reverse happens also, darker complexion, right? Complected individuals who have lighter complected children, they praise and celebrate, giving false identity to them, and then they go out into the world with that issue that you were talking about.
Yes.
I would love to speak to that as well. I think in the last show, I was commenting after the fact because I wasn't online at the time. But the other aspects of that, as the parents having the issues within themselves, it can be where a dark skinned parent, I've seen this so many times, a dark skinned parent can berate and belittle their dark skinned children because they have a problem with themselves. They think that this is something wrong, so they are seeing their reflection in that child, and they're not only being abusive to themselves, but abusing their children verbally and sometimes in other ways. And so, yeah, that can create a lot of problems between people who wouldn't otherwise have issues, because then you have those situations where a darker skinned person is saying, well, hey, I'm getting dogged out at home and at school, you know, by my parents at home, and then I get dogged out at school because of my complexion. But when I look at you, you seem to be favored, you know, or so, you know, those types of things are happening. So
Yes.
it's not always just where it's a dark skinned person taking something out on a light skinned person and vice versa. Sometimes it's same complexion taking these things out on a person of the same complexion. But as a historian, a mother and teacher, and as an anthropologist at heart, I'm always thinking about what are the messages we're sending to each other. The subconscious is deep. If we don't monitor ourselves, we can damage each other greatly. How do we create appreciation for all the different shades and hair types? Because we have a thing about hair too.
I have something to say. I'm just listening to everybody, you know, and just knowing, you know, we all know this is just a lot of generational trauma that's left over from the slave days, and that's really the root and the bottom of it. Unless we get down to the root of it, we won't be able to really start to work on it, because it's true that, you know, the lighter skinned people were favored, you know, and they had, you know, to work in the house, and then they were looked down upon, the people in the fields and the people in the house, you know. So that was that separation where it started. And even in Detroit, growing up in the 70s, we know there was a distinct difference between the east side and the west side. You know, they would say, oh, well, look at her. She's from the east side. You can tell, look at her, look how dark she is, look at her hair. You know, and then over on the west side, it was, you know, the longer hair, light skinned folks. And then growing up, grandparents talking about in the 40s and 50s, they had blow hair parties and brown paper bag parties where you couldn't get into the party if your skin was darker than a paper bag, and if they blew on your hair and it didn't move, you couldn't get into the party. So these are generational traumatic things that have been carried over from generation to generation to generation, and it's still being done, you know. And so as we talk about inclusion, it's not just between the Blacks and the Hispanics, the Blacks and the whites. There is a lot of inclusion that needs to happen within our own race, because there's a lot of division and separatism. And so getting down to the root of the problem is where we really need to start. Why is it this way? What happened? And then we can start to heal, you know, because things really, some of it has changed and it's going to continue to change, but a lot of it still has not changed. And hearing that, you know, dark skinned people picking on, you know, their kids and that kind of, it does happen. For me, it's always like if you're too light or you're too dark. And for me, my best friends have always been the extreme opposite of me my entire life to this day, in school and to this day. My best friend is the direct opposite of me. She's heavy set, she's very dark complected, and I was the thin, light skin, you know, so-called cute one. And that's just how it was, because we're both outcasts. And somewhere in the middle, it's okay to be, you know, light brown, chocolate brown, cocoa colored, all that kind of stuff. You know, so getting to the root of the problem to me is key, and having those conversations within our community, because people don't like us to talk to the white folks about what happens within our community. Don't tell our secrets. But then we don't even want to be honest with ourselves about our own secrets.
Yeah. And so going back to what I was saying about us needing to create messages that counteract that damage, we have to take the time to point out the different shades of Black people we see and interact with, and make sure we speak of their beautiful skin tone and their beautiful hair, whatever shade they are, without making one type better than another. When a sister tells me I have good hair, I'm always sure to respond with something like, "Thank you. You really have good hair too," and a smile. Because sometimes the response that I get is like, "What? What are you talking about? My hair is good." It's all good hair. And something we often don't think about is while one is covered in somebody else's, the opposite is happening elsewhere. I love 4C hair, but somebody with 4C hair is looking like, "Oh, I wish I had yours." And I'm like, "Honey, why?" Please, okay? It's important for all the adults, but parents especially, have to be sure to be cognizant of the language that they're using around children. For example, if your children always hear you referring to hair as good, but it looks nothing like the hair on your children's head, that child is going to develop issues with themselves based on the language that the adult thinks is innocent. In my household and in my classroom, I'm pulling up images of Black people all over the world, and I'm speaking of them all in terms of their beauty. The darkest to the lightest, the tightly coiled hair to the loosely coiled, the shortest hair to the longest, and all the different textures represented in those different lengths. I show the children the beauty, and I tell the children they themselves are beautiful, and that anyone telling them otherwise has issues within themselves that has absolutely nothing to do with them. We have to counteract the things that we pass down to our children. The messages internalized by our previous generations who saw cartoons and soap ads that indicated dark skin was like dirt that needed to be washed off. That's not anything we as a people came up with, but our people took that on and it became part of our issues with each other. One part of counteracting the message is to ensure that we don't allow ourselves to passively watch and listen. It's important to us and for our children to actively listen and watch, where there's so much going on in the media. When things come up, we have to take a minute to have a conversation with our children. Did you notice that? Did you see that? What did you notice about this cast? What did you notice about how they talk to this particular character in the show? Bring out those things so the children can learn to be active listeners and watchers, and not feel subjected all the time or take on subliminal messages because they're not filtering those messages. We need to think deeply and assess what we hear and see. And if it's negative, whether it's cloaked or blatantly negative, then we have to call it out. And while we call it out, we have to replace that message with a message of unity and love for ourselves and each other.
I truly think that this time that we're in right now, and when someone said we've come a long ways, we still have a long ways to go, but because I have an almost 18-year-old, and I do believe that this is one of the greatest times for her to be alive, and she's a brown skinned girl. Because you got the Lupitas, like she has been celebrated for her beauty, and not many before her really had. You got your Beyonce making songs about brown skinned girls. You got Sierra talking about melanin. So now the girls are starting to appreciate their melanin. They're starting to appreciate their crowns and their natural hair. So I'm glad on where we've come. We have to come further, but I know even after our conversations, I have went to speak to my kids even more about colorism and just everything, because I have a son that he's probably lighter than everybody on here. And for the longest, he wanted me to straighten his hair, and I think he thought he was white for a minute because he could kind of pass if he's with them. But listen, I have to say to him, you're not cuter than anybody else because you're light skinned. Light skinned boys, they got that little, but like you're not cuter than anybody else. You're just as black as everybody else. Be proud of who you are. So just the open conversation and to begin the healing with this generation, I think is just amazing.
But I think the real, well, not real, but one of the issues is, and I kind of want to just throw it out to Lauren, is when you don't feel a part of any of the hues, right, in the Black community, right? So, to say, like, yeah, I look like these individuals, kind of like your son, Lakeisha. Like, I look right. Like, where do I belong in this? That sometimes there's not enough education in the world, or not enough conversation and tutelage in the world that will make you accept the reality of your race. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out to Lauren just for a second, like, because I know what she struggled with as her mom.
Well, oh Lord, this is starting again. Sorry. I guess my whole thing with it is it's always kind of a subliminal situation where it's like I can never disparage a dark-skinned girl for celebrating herself. Like, I'm happy. Like, absolutely, you brown-skinned girl, go you. But I feel like they weren't talking about me. So I'm sad and happy at the same time. Like, it's kind of I don't fit anywhere. Like, I talk about these problems kind of like they were in the past, but no, like I still definitely struggle with it. Like I can intellectualize it, but it doesn't make it much better. Yeah, I really don't fit in anywhere. People again can intellectualize and say, yeah, she's black, but they still won't treat you like you're in the family, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like you're a fluke. You kind of feel like a fluke. And then I definitely don't fit in with white people, because then I absolutely feel like an alien. So it's kind of like a kind of in no man's land. And then when you guys were talking about your kids and celebrating kind of the opposite shade, if one were to have, like, if I were to have a dark-skinned child, I honestly think I would be jealous of my kid. Like, not like, being completely honest, I think I would probably end up jealous of my kid if they were darker than me, because I'm still not over it. So I don't know. I'm still for sure in the middle of this whole situation, and again, I could never feel bad or feel angry for people darker than me for celebrating themselves and for receiving love and getting props for being beautiful and stuff. But I don't feel like I'm in the mix. So it's always me being on the outside looking in. And that's honestly, if that's the way it is, and that's just the way it is.
But little sis, let me say this to you. I mentioned the fact that in my classroom, I bring up all the different people all over the world, all the different types of black people. And I heard you mention albino earlier. And I want you to understand that although you are not albino, there's nothing wrong with being albino. And many black people, a lot of the continent of Africa is albino. And so when I'm hearing you say you don't fit in anywhere, the term the statement that black people range every skin color is not an overgeneralization, because it's a fact. From the albino black people all the way to the folks that we say they're so dark, their skin literally looks like it's black or a deep dark indigo. There's a really wide range, and those albino people are just as black as their chocolate mothers or their caramel mothers or any whatever their Black mother or father is, they're still just as Black as that person. So understand that there's nothing wrong with being an albino person. And with saying that we do have people who lack melanin completely, you do fit. You see what I'm saying? You have melanin. You're not lacking of it, but you do fit in. You fit into the spectrum, and we have a broad spectrum.
Yeah, there's this girl that I connected with on Twitter. She's albino, and she talks about sometimes how she's fully Nigerian, but people like try to strip her of her blackness just because she doesn't have any melanin. Like, she's kind of lighter than me. I mean, her hair is white and everything, but she's honestly kind of a little bit more tan than me. And people, she says, completely like try to strip her of her identity because she's not dark.
That's their issue. That's their ignorance. That's their issue. And that's why I'm saying that it would be great if we get to a point where every classroom that has Black children in it can help those children understand that all this stuff that they're doing with age, don't go at anyone else because you don't like anything about them. We have to deal with that bullying in general, but all of the different aspects, the things that I go over in my classroom are things that have helped my students. And I have a rainbow tribe, okay? But it'll be great when we get to the day that those types of things that I help my children with in my classroom can be implemented in every classroom, because there's no way any of us should come up thinking that it's okay for the abuse that we are dealing with to continue to go on. But I just really want you to know that you do fit in, hon. Don't let anybody make you feel differently. And I know that's easier said than done. I know that's easier said than done. But continue to try to work on it. Continue to try to process it and understand that being a Black woman is not just about your skin complexion.
Great points, Ashara. I really hope that you were listening, Lauren, because they made some great points. You are beautiful. And again, this series is about letting people know it really doesn't matter how much melanin you have in your skin, that we want everyone to embrace each other regardless of how much melanin is in their skin. For those that are watching, if you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to type them in the comments, because we want to make sure that this is interactive. We want to make sure that you're able to join in also. So if you have any comments, drop them in. Any other comments? Yolanda, you have something to add?
I don't know. I guess I'm sitting here listening to Lauren, and it doesn't amaze me that she feels like that, because I understand that there's a spectrum to everything that we do. But the one thing I want her to take away from this is something that I'm telling myself every day, that I am more than enough. I am more than enough as a Black woman. I am more than enough regardless of the color of my hue. I am enough. And when you meet or encounter people who make you feel as though you're not enough, do just like you would if you walked in some mud. Wipe it off your foot and keep it moving. Because guess what? Their opinions are just like buttholes. Everybody has one. Some of them work and some of them don't. Don't let it bother you. Just keep it moving. And if I don't know if you can look at your circle around you, but you are circled around a village of hue. Every one of us see nothing in you but beauty. When I saw you, the first thing I didn't see was your color. You know what I saw? Your big old gorgeous smile on your cheeks. That's what I saw first. So accentuate your positive. Don't worry about the negative, because guess what? Everybody has a flaw. And keep it stepping. You are strong, you are intelligent, you are beautiful, and you are loved. And that is the most important thing that you can take away from anything that we give you. Everything else is just like useless chatter. Let it flow.
And you know what, Lauren, like nobody on here, all of us ladies, like none of us were a mistake. Like God created us the way we were specifically. We don't understand why, we don't know why, but He created every shade just so perfectly. And I know what I have to tell myself and what I try to teach my kids, like we have to get to a point where we know who we are inside, because the word of God says, like, He knew you before you were even in your mother's womb. Like, He knows your past, your future. He knows everything about you, and you're perfect. You're all perfect. So just the confidence, like whoever's around you, it doesn't matter. I'm confident in me. I'm confident in my yellow skin, my flat face. People talked about all the time growing up because my face was flat and round. But I had to be confident that I'm me and I'm perfect and whatever. Like we're all perfect and there's no coincidence in either one of our shades.
Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to what she's saying, and I used to feel that way too, but I stopped putting myself in a box and stopped caring what other people thought about me. And so I'm older than you are, Lauren. So, I've been doing this for a few years. And like I said, I had to get comfortable with my skin color, and that's just who I am, and that's what it is. So you have to stop allowing what other people about you to affect you, and just be comfortable in your own skin, because that's what's most important. People have hang-ups and they have to deal with their own issues. But what other people think about you has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. So that's my advice. Just start to accept yourself for who you are. You don't have to squeeze into any box, but you are more than a person, and with that comes special power. So still love and appreciate yourself for who you are, and know that you have that power above everything else and above other people. So never put yourself down. I think I got about 1% battery. My charger's in the car, but I did want to tell her before I got off of here. Yeah, I got probably double your age, but don't care about what other people think about you. You know who you are. You know what runs through your blood. I mean, as light as I am.
There she goes.
Aww.
But as light as she is, she's making a great point. As light as she is, at the end of the day, all the blood that runs through our veins is red. It does not matter. We all have the same color blood running through our veins. Asandi, give us something. I'm gonna let Leah take us out. So Asandi, drop us something.
I really got nothing. I think this is I'm loving I want to thank Lauren for being vulnerable with us and just being real. I appreciate it. I've just been listening and learning, and I shared in the comments that what is interesting listening to these stories is that we really share more in common. Our experiences have been similar, whether you are a dark-skinned sister or a light-skinned sister. We have both experienced some trauma, and so we can build on that, and we can uplift and heal each other from that. And just thank you, Lauren, for hanging out with us and sharing your story. And it's a journey. You will be fine. Your mother is amazing. So you'll be fine, Leo. And grant yourself some grace, and forget the people that are not going to ride with you, that are not going to celebrate all the beauty and fabulousness that you are. They don't get the privilege of hanging out with Lauren. That's all I got, Dr. B.
All right. Leah?
I just want to say that this is the village personified, right? That thought process, this ideology that we often speak about that's missing in today's times. This is the village personified. I'm looking at the screen and I see my baby in the center of nothing but strong Black women, and I'm just loving it. But I want us to, as we kind of continue on through the next couple of weeks till we hit the next one, Dr. B, I want us to begin to honor the fact that race is a social construct, meaning there was some individual that decided to, as Nicole was stating, to put us into silos. And then we adopted that thought process and that mentality, and we've like again worn that dirty shirt that has split the strongest group of people on this planet apart. And so if we begin to acknowledge just that simple fact that somebody crafted this space for you and you didn't craft it for yourself, identify the role, identify who you want to be as an individual, and then live that thing out. Lastly, I put it up on the screen here. We need to remember, especially as parents, that life and death lies in the tongue. And words are extremely powerful. And so we need to speak life into our children when we see that they're low, when we see that they may be faltering, when we see bullying scenarios, whether it be from adults or from other children. Speak life into them, because one day those seeds will germinate and you will see that they will be strong enough, as we're seeing this group of strong Black women here today.
Wow. That was awesome. I feel like I shouldn't even be speaking after that. I feel like I should just shut it down. But I just want to thank everybody that was watching tonight. Again, this is Dr. B presents Light Skin versus Dark Skin, Impact on Kids, Possible Generational Curses. We had a great discussion here. I really want to thank Lauren. She's on the screen and she's in the middle, for joining us today, for really exposing herself and letting us put some love on her, to let her know that she's much more than just a skin color, that we all got love for her, and she's a beautiful woman and she has nothing but greatness in store for her. Join us in 2 weeks. We will be going to episode 4. Episode 4 will be Light Skin versus Dark Skin, Impact on Relationships, whether personal or in the workplace. I'm sure that'll be a great discussion. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. I really, really thank you. Again, to the viewers that are out there, thank you so much for tuning in. See you in 2 weeks. Impact on Relationships, personal and professional. Thank you, ladies. Good night.
Good night, ladies.
Good night, ladies.
Hi, ladies.
Good night.
Good night.